A political firestorm erupted in Australia's parliament after far-right Senator Pauline Hanson walked into the Senate wearing a burqa, a garment she wants banned in all public places. The dramatic stunt threw the chamber into chaos, with Muslim senators calling it a racist provocation.
She is disrespecting the Muslims out there, Muslim Australians. It's absolutely unconstitutional.
Australia's parliament erupted in anger on Monday after far-right Senator Pauline Hanson wore a burqa to the chamber as a political prop in her push to ban the Muslim garment in public.
Senator Hanson is using a prop in the Senate, and it's a dangerous prop.
Hanson put on the burqa shortly after she was denied permission to introduce a bill that would outlaw burqas and other full-face coverings in public places in Australia. It was condemned as racist by other lawmakers, and proceedings were suspended when Hanson refused to remove it.
What has happened today is not a genuine demonstration of faith. In fact, it is the middle finger to people of faith. It is extremely racist and unsafe.
What I'm saying is,
Hanson became known in the 1990s for a strident opposition to Asian immigrants and to asylum seekers.
no more Muslim refugees.
The Queensland senator has long campaigned against Islamic clothing. She previously wore a burqa to Parliament in 2017, also calling for a national ban at the time. In a statement later on Monday, Hanson said her actions were in protest at the Senate, rejecting her proposed bill. Her One Nation party has 4 seats in the Senate, gaining 2 in May's general election, amid rising support for far-right anti-immigration policies.
A major diplomatic push is underway to end the war in Ukraine. US and Ukrainian officials say they have worked out a quote-unquote refined peace framework after talks in Geneva, an attempt to narrow deep differences over a US proposal that Kiev and several European allies had initially rejected as far too favorable to Russia. The revised dialogue comes after Washington blindsided Kiev last week with a 28-point plan that demanded Ukraine give up more territory, accept curbs on its military, and abandon its NATO ambitions, conditions Kiev has long said amount to surrender. European allies responded with their own counter-proposal, freezing fighting along current front lines, leaving territorial negotiations for later, and securing a US Article 5-style guarantee for Ukraine's future security. Moscow has already dismissed Europe's version as unconstructive. President Donald Trump, who has promised to end the war quickly, hinted at quote-unquote big progress in the talks, even as Ukrainians remain deeply skeptical. Many fear any rushed deal could weaken their country at a moment when President Zelenskiy faces political pressure at home and Russia is making battlefield gains. Zelenskiy confirmed Ukraine's delegation is returning from Switzerland to consult him, saying Kiev is looking for compromises that strengthen, not weaken us. He may travel to Washington as early as this week to discuss the most sensitive parts of the plan directly with President Donald Trump. The Kremlin on Monday said that a European counter-proposal to a US 28-point peace plan for Ukraine was not constructive and that it simply did not work for Moscow.
The Kremlin said on Monday that a European counter-proposal to a US 28-point peace plan for Ukraine was not constructive and that it simply did not work for Moscow.
To the just and lasting peace.
The original US peace plan, which came out last week, blindsided Kiev and European allies. It also deepened concerns that Russia's core demands had been accepted by Washington. The plan included calls for Ukraine to cede some territory, accept limits on its military, and renounce ambitions to join NATO. But the revised European counterplan, agreed after talks in Geneva, considerably changes the significance and meaning of key points. According to a copy reviewed by Reuters, it would halt fighting at present front lines, leaving discussions of territory for later and include a NATO-style US security guarantee for Ukraine. On Friday, Russian President Vladimir Putin said US proposals for peace in Ukraine could be the basis of a resolution to the conflict, but that if Kiev turned down the plan, Russian forces would advance further.
The United States on Monday formally designated Venezuela's Cartel de los Soles as a foreign terrorist organization, layering additional terrorism-related sanctions on the group. It has said includes President Nicolás Maduro and other high-ranking officials too.
Que si el Cartel de los Soles, que ahora es organización terrorista, ridículos, son unos ridículos.
Calling the move ridiculous, Venezuelan Vice President Delcy Rodriguez blasted the United States over its formal designation of Venezuela's Cartel de los Soles as a foreign terrorist organization. The move comes after U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the group allegedly imports illegal drugs into the United States. Rodriguez called it a non-existent group. The U.S. has said members of Cartel de los Soles, or Cartel of the Suns, include Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro himself and other high-ranking officials.
No.
U.S. officials have also accused the group of working with Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua, which Washington also ties to Maduro, who has always denied any involvement. Maduro accuses the U.S. of seeking regime change out of a desire to control Venezuela's natural resources, especially its oil reserves. The U.S. for months has waged a campaign of deadly strikes against suspected drug trafficking boats off the Venezuelan coast and the Pacific coast of Latin America. Experts have questioned the legality of the strikes, and a Reuters poll this month showed that only 29% of Americans support using the military to kill suspected drug traffickers without a judge or court being involved. On Monday, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt told reporters that Trump did not plan to stop the strikes on suspected drug boats.
We view the Maduro regime as being illegitimate, and the president has been very satisfied with the successful strikes against narco-terrorists and foreign terrorists that are illegally trafficking drugs towards the United States of America. He's not going to tolerate that, and you can expect to see those strikes continue.
President Trump has built up U.S. military bases in the Caribbean, and on Monday, a wide array of aircraft was seen at the former Roosevelt Roads Naval Base in Puerto Rico. It's raised concerns that the U.S. may seek to use the Cartel of the Sun's new designation to justify military action, though sanction experts have said the statute does not authorize such a move. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said the Cartel of the Sun's designation would bring, quote, a whole bunch of new options to the United States, in excerpts released recently from an interview with One American News.
In a major diplomatic development, the White House has confirmed that U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping held a phone call. This was their first conversation since meeting in South Korea last month. And Beijing's readout reveals a strikingly direct message from Xi Jinping on the issue of Taiwan. According to China's state news agency Xinhua, President Xi Jinping told Donald Trump that Taiwan's return to China is an important part of the post-war international order. She said that China and the United States had once fought side by side against fascism and militarism during World War II, and now both the nations must work together to safeguard the outcomes of that era. The remarks come at a moment of heightened regional tension. China is embroiled in its biggest diplomatic standoff with Japan in years after Prime Minister Senator Pauline warned that a hypothetical Chinese attack on Taiwan could trigger a military response from Tokyo. During this call, President Xi also told Trump that China-US relations have maintained positive momentum in recent weeks. Beijing has resumed purchases of US soybeans, halted its expanded curbs on rare earth exports, and the U.S. has reduced some of the tariffs on China by 10%. She said these steps prove that cooperation benefits both the sides while confrontation hurts both. He urged Washington and Beijing to expand their list of areas for cooperation, saying that the world expects stability between the two largest economies. The leaders also discussed the war in Ukraine. President Xi reiterated that China supports all efforts conducive to peace and called on all sides to narrow their differences. Now, the White House has released no further details about the call, but the tone of Beijing's statement suggests both leaders are seeking to manage tensions even as deep disagreements remain over Taiwan and the Indo-Pacific.